Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Time once again for another edition of Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Phil, let's talk about the experience of working with an advisor on this podcast. It's probably been a while since we've done one of these.
Yep.
If we have, actually, can't really remember right this
I
minute.
don't remember we've done so many shows.
I know, right? So
might be out there somewhere.
Might be. So, but let's talk about like just a great experience. I guess like a lot of people know they get to a stage and they're like, I probably better call somebody. I probably better get some advice,
right.
But what, I don't know. I think a lot of people feel like going, I hate to do this to you, but I feel like people think it's like going to the dentist or the doctor, right? And it's like, nobody wants to do it, but it's like, but then you do it and you go, oh, I'm really glad I got that done, kind of thing.
Right.
So, the experience doesn't have to be painful, right? I mean,
no,
a lot of times it's good for many people, right?
So, and a lot of times it's like many things like that. It's just the fear of unknown, right? You don't know what it's going to look like. And, I don't want to go in there and them to tell me I got to work another 10 years.
Right. I got to work till I die. Right. Yeah.
You don't want that news, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it might not be bad news at all. I mean, that is to me, one of the best part of my jobs is working with clients and letting you know, hey, actually, yeah, you can retire.
You're in pretty good shape. Yeah.
You're in good shape.
You get a little pain right here and you go, I'm just going to live with it. I don't want to go see the doctor because he'll tell me it's the worst thing ever, or something like that. And all it is gas or something, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about your experience or your approach, I guess, to start. So for people that have checked out the podcast and continue to check out some and they think, I probably ought to call this guy. I've watched enough episodes. Maybe it's worthwhile. How do you surmise your experience and what you try to do for clients?
Well, I mean, at a high level, our approach is what we call planning first, right? So we want to build that roadmap first before we even get into investments. So, I mean, that's probably one of the bigger differentiators. But I mean, at the first, approach or first contact, we'll have a 15, 20-minute phone call. In the whole purpose of that call is just to talk, find out, hey, what are you looking for? What prompted you to call? To get to know a little bit about your scenario, you can get to know a little bit more about my scenario and see if we're a good fit.
Yeah.
Before we go on to that next stage of actually delving in and looking at anything, let's have that first discussion to see, hey, is there a connection? Are we on the same page? Or
gotcha.
Are you looking for somebody that they're a stock jockey and just going to give you, buy this stock, that stock? Well, then, yeah, if that's who you're looking for, I'm not the right guy. And that first call is really kind of that meaning, that approach, right? Is to understand what is your goals? What prompted you to call? What are you looking for? This is our approach in general at a high level. Do you think that there's a good fit? Do I think in your scenario, there's things that we can help with?
I was going to ask you, is that kind of the difference in way you see that term, that planning first firm versus an investment first firm?
Yeah. Yeah, because with us, investments, I mean, obviously they're important.
They're important.
They're the engine that make everything run at the end of the day.
Right.
But to me, you have to plan first. You have to have the blueprint, right? I always joke with clients, it's like building a house, right? If you're going to build a house or do an addition or whatever it is, you're not just going to go down to your local home improvement store and start throwing things in the cart of, this sink looks really good and, I like that toilet or these, whatever. You're going to build the blueprint first to see what exactly are we trying to accomplish? What's the cost going to be? Can we do it? Do we need to make some adjustments here or there? Now that we have that all in place, now we can step back and say, okay, now that we understand what we're trying to do, let's make our investments work according to that blueprint versus a lot of times people get caught up with, well, here's my investments. How do I make them work for me? Well, how they work for you depends on what that blueprint looks like and how they get positioned.
So after that initial kind of conversation that the learning each other a little bit, reading the tea leaves, if you will.
Right.
How fast does it kind of move after that? Because I think sometimes people think, oh, this is a very long, arduous process.
I mean, the planning process can be 2, maybe 3 meetings, 4. It really depends on the client. I mean, my goal in that, I always tell the clients is not to gather a bunch of information in that first meeting and say, here's the plan. Mm-hmm. My goal is to gather the information. We'll have a discussion on, what your goals and what are you trying to accomplish? When do you want to retire? What does retirement look like? Do you have some travel plans? Whatever that vision is you have for retirement.
Okay.
Understand what assets you have, resources, income, so we can start to build that out. But then to start looking at each one of these pieces and build together the plan as you start to see how they fit together and show you options. My goal is simply to show you, here's the pros and cons, so we get to Social Security. A lot of options around when and why you would file at different ages. We'll run the numbers and tell you mathematically, here's what makes the most sense and what we would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's not my plan, it's yours. So my goal isn't to give you that decision. It's to say what to do. It's to show, here's the options.
Yeah.
I'd recommend this, but if you're not comfortable waiting till 70, let's say, that's fine. What would you like to do? And as long as you understand the pros and the cons, I've done my job.
Gotcha. Is there a hierarchy of needs when breaking this stuff down for people, or is it person to person? Because universally, Phil, we all got to deal with Social Security. We all got to deal with taxes. We all got to deal with these different components. Do you kind of break that down in order of their pain point? Or do you kind of try to frame it to where it's like, look, I understand this is your biggest concern, but here's how it all plays together?
Yeah, we always, in that first kind of official meeting, we get more into that to understand really what is their pain point.
Okay.
And we want to know that so we can make sure to address that and let them know that, hey, we will address that. If it's not going to be right now, this is where we'll talk about that.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, there are hierarchies of things. I mean, you've got to build the vision first, right?
Okay.
The old adage, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So what does that look like? What is your vision for retirement? How much do you need? What is your bucket list, so to speak, that you want to do? And let's get all those pieces out there so we know what we're trying to accomplish, what an ideal retirement looks like for you. Now let's step back and start looking at the income and the resources you have and start building those out first. Then we start looking at the tax aspect of, okay, well, here's the tax ramifications of making this decision this way.
Mm-hmm.
Do we now that we understand the whole picture, need to make some adjustments to make the tax position work better?
Because everybody's pain points can be different. Like, say, if you walk in going, I'm terrified about risk. I don't want to be overly exposed in my risk tolerance. Let's focus there. And you're like, okay, but that's not it. And I'm just throwing this out there, but it's like that's like step 4. Sometimes you got to manage people's fear because I want to address that right now. And it's like, okay, but in the kind of scheme of things, this is where it's going to fall. So you kind of have to work through that. Yeah,
we want to definitely acknowledge and understand that up front because that's a pain point to them.
Absolutely.
We let them know we will address that.
Yeah.
And we can, maybe address it at a little bit higher level at that point. If it is really a roadblock or something that they can't get beyond first, okay, let's talk about that. And this is kind of the approaches and things to consider. But ultimately, how we handle that, we won't have the right answer until we get this, 2 or 3 steps down the road.
Yeah.
We'll definitely circle back. And this is more where we'll talk specifically on that topic.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Like, look, okay, we're addressing this. Definitely, I hear you. I'm reading you that this is a worry. But until we get some of these other pieces, and again, whatever that pain point might be, we're going to circle back because then you're going to see how it fits into the grand scheme of things.
Correct. Because perspective could change then.
Yeah.
A lot of times people, they don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. You go into retirement. This is new for you. You only do it once, hopefully. And that's the advantage you have with working with an advisor is I do this all the time, right? So your scenario is a little bit different than, the other client scenarios, but there's a lot of commonality.
Yeah, for sure.
So we know how these pieces fit together. We've seen it work before. We know, the different levers and things we can pull to make it all work at the end.
Right.
But we want to make sure you understand where that's going to fit, and we will address those concerns as we get there.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of the Tax Smart Retiree right now.
And Phil, that's communication. And we've talked about it a ton of times on the show. Somebody could walk in off the street, give you their basic information. You could probably formulate a plan pretty quickly because you've been doing this for a really long time. However, you're not doing them the service of doing that, because it's like, yeah, I can probably put together something that might actually be accurate, but I'd rather get to know you, learn all the details, and then build it properly, even if it winds up being the same recommendations, just because I've got the experience, to your point. But that's where the communication allows all that to happen, and all the follow-up conversations and all those pieces.
Right. Yeah, and that is really the key is listening to what that client has for concerns, goals.
Yeah.
And again, giving them the options, because a lot of times they don't know the options, right? They, in a decision, maybe they understand one side of it, the risk side of it, but they don't know the benefit side and kind of that pro and con. Mm-hmm. My goal is, so you've got that informed information that you can make that decision, right? You've got both sides of the equation, so to speak. So yeah, I understand that, again, back to Social Security, filing early, I'm giving up X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, it's just what I'm more comfortable with. That's fine.
Yeah.
I always, tell clients as we're going through a lot of these decisions, I mean, there's two rules that are going to come into play. There's the head rule. That's all the math, right? That's where I can fit in. I'll tell you that. We'll run the math. We'll make all the mathematical formulas work. But the other side of the rule is the tummy rule, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's ultimately what rules, right? That's what's going to govern, because if it is mathematically, the right decision to do X, Y, and Z, but you just can't sleep.
Makes you sick. Yeah.
Then don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
If the plan still works, then do it the way you're comfortable with, as long as you understand pros and cons. Like I said, it's not my plan, it's yours. Let's make sure that we can accomplish that comfort for you, knowing now we're heading down this direction. So,
well, Phil, you say many times on the show that, you have to delve into some of the attorney areas, but you're not an attorney, so it's not actually legal advice. But, a lot of these things in the financial life kind of cross play with each other.
Right.
And so in a way, I think some people also get confused about the advisor relationship because of how different advisors get paid or how their business is set up.
Right.
A lot of them, it's kind of like an attorney a little bit. It's kind of like a retainer type thing. Like every time you call me, you're not getting charged, right? It's like, hey, I'm stressed out about the market. It's been crazy. I want to come in and talk about, okay, am I getting hit with a fee? That. And so depending on who you're working with, and those are the communication pieces again, understanding that setup and that structure, because I think that's how it's more relationship based, right? So it's like, hey, you need me, I'm here.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I always encourage clients to call if there's questions. I jokingly say, look, I'd rather have you call and say, hey, I'm thinking about whatever, buying an RV, than at our next meeting said, I did this thing.
Yeah.
How do we make it work?
I think it was.
It's okay. It's not my goal in position in this whole process isn't to be the guard of your money, right? I don't stand between you and your money. No, it's your money. You do what you want.
Yeah.
My role is to be a sounding board.
Yeah.
To give you the pros and the cons again of these decisions. Hey, if you want to do an RV, whatever it is, right? That item, let's have the discussion up front. Just so okay, yeah, we can do it, but then it's going to change this. And okay, again, you've got the pros and cons. All the sides of the equation. What do you want to do?
That's a good point. It made me think about that. I think it was a Volkswagen commercial. I'm not for sure. Not too long ago, they were doing a campaign with the fantastic actor Paul Giamatti in there. He plays a financial advisor, and he's got some client, who's rich or whatever, and he's constantly calling him and going, he's like, you did what? And so they the long version is they kind of set it up to where he's like having to deal with I did something. And then he's like, hey, I just did something. And when he goes to see what it was, he's bought a very practical Volkswagen or whatever. And he's like, oh, this isn't so bad. So kind of made me think about that with your point. It's like, yeah, it's not, you're not asking for permission. It's just, hey, let's, because especially Phil, and this is my last point, because your life is going to change as you get to retirement and go through it. So you're not the money police, but let's work together to adapt things because the rules do change
all the time. Right. And that's the goal with all of this is it's not, we've done a plan, boom, it's done. I mean, a blueprint is kind of that way, right? You build your house, it's done. It's complete. Yeah, you remodel, you repaint.
But they change. You know, that's not even the case because the architect goes, "I screwed up. I got to I got to change something." Right. So.
Yeah. So this is a continual building process. I mean, we do set that blueprint, and to me, that's the direction, right? That just tells us that okay, all the different moving pieces are put in position to move towards your ultimate goal of whatever it is, and retiring at a certain age with income at a certain level, whatever it is, and we're always moving in that direction. But as life events happen, right, markets change, tax law changes. I mean, your risk change. I mean, there's all these different factors that come into play.
Yeah.
So the plan isn't rigid that, no, I'm sorry, we didn't have that in the original plan. We can't do that. Well, no, let's have the discussion. Right. I mean, what does it look like? You're retired now and you realize that, I really don't want this 4-bedroom colonial anymore. I want to downsize, or I want to, all our kids have moved out west. Right. So, rather than, spend every other week on an airplane traveling and seeing the grandkids, can we move? Well, let's run the numbers and see. We didn't have that in the plan to begin with, but we didn't know they were going to move. So, life happens. Events
They didn't know they were going to move either, right? Yeah. So life's always happening.
Yeah. You've got to be flexible in your plan. And that is where your advisor should be working with you on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because at the end of the day, every firm can tell you what they're going to do, right? But you want to be shown what they can do. And that's why so many, most of the ones I know offer those consultations and reviews complimentary, especially that first learning process. You've been consuming some of the podcast, or maybe you've checked out some education materials, you've come out to an event or something like that. Well, come in for the consultation and find out if it's a good fit, because Phil started this whole thing by saying it's got to work both ways, right? So, if it's complimentary, there's no reason to, especially when it's something you got to tackle. And life is, our finances and our financial world and everything just gets more and more complex. And we talk about it all the time, Phil. Yeah, there's more tools out there and resources for the DIYer, but how they play together in retirement is a completely different animal. So get some advice, get a little bit of education, and see, if you can get some help. And if you need that, Phil's here. So reach out to him. We got all the links in the show descriptions below. You can go to philstaxhacks.com, or you can just simply call him. The number is on the screen, of course, or you can just go to 248-888-7530. He's serving people in Michigan, but he's got clients all over the country as well. So if you need some questions, or got some questions, need some help, do the Zoom thing, whatever it might be, but reach out to him. Hit that subscribe button so you catch new episodes when they come out. Thumbs up, all that good stuff on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And my friend, have yourself a great week.
All right, you too.
All right, buddy. We'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and other retirement facts.
Phil?
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.